Meet story, everybody passing the buck, it seems. We'll be talking about it with Marcus Carlson in Business a little bit later on. Right now, though, time for the France 24 debate. It's news that caught most of the world's nearly 1.2 billion Catholics by surprise. Pope Benedict announcing his renunciation, that's the official term, the 85-year-old Pontiff stepping down 2 weeks from today for health reasons. 8 years following on after the long reign of close ally John Paul II, the German becoming the first pope in nearly 6 centuries to resign, thus opening discussion on his legacy and the scramble for his succession. A Canadian, several Africans among the names mentioned. Could we see the first ever non-European head of the Catholic Church? And as the Church sees its influence wane in Europe while its following grows in the developing world, will Benedict's successors stay the course or will they reform? If so, in which direction? Today in the France 24 debate, the Catholic Church after Benedict. And with us to talk about it is Jean Duchesne, advisor to the Archbishop of Paris. Welcome back, sir. German freelance journalist and author Ulrike KOLTERMANN. From the Nigerian capital, John ALECHENU, chief correspondent at Punch newspaper. Thank you for being with us. We'll be going to Rome to Seema GUPTA in a moment for an update from her. The France 24 debate, you can always join the conversation on Facebook, and you have this Monday, and Twitter. You can find us with a hashtag F24debate. So, the announcement coming late morning local time, a first since Gregory II way back in 1415.
After having repeatedly examined my conscience before God, I have come to the certainty that my strengths, due to an advanced age, are no longer suited to an adequate exercise of the Petrine ministry. I'm well aware that this ministry, due to its essential spiritual nature, must be carried out not only with words and deeds, but no less with prayer and suffering.
Jean Duchesne, all officials expressing surprise, genuine surprise. This seemed to be out of the blue.
Well, no, it was predictable. I mean, if you followed the man and not simply the pontiff or the leader, you might have noticed that he had already written and published this, saying that he thought, and he had said and written and published, that if the Pope felt too old or too tired and felt he was unable to carry on his duties, he should resign. So actually this came as a shock because it is unprecedented, because it was unexpected, because it had not been programmed. But you can say that this was not unpredictable.
Of course, we live in France where presidents promised that they would give their state of health and didn't do so.
Yes, but see, the French have always been very passionate and very excited about the Pope. If I can recall just a little bit of history, you see, the French arrested and deported popes, Pius VI and Pius VII. That was under Napoleon I. And then Napoleon III defended the Pope in Rome. So the French have always been excessive in relation to the Pope.
Ulrike KOLTERMANN, it took nearly 1,000 years for the Vatican to elect a second German Pope. Now he's leaving. What's been the reaction in your home country?
In Germany, people are surprised, as everywhere else, and there were some people saying, "Oh, we are not Pope anymore," quoting the famous headline from the time when he was elected. The tabloid Bild put on the first paper, "We are Pope." So, but it's the same. Yes, some people who are experts, they know that there was talk. He talked about it, that the Pope can resign because of health problems, and he also talked about it when his predecessor John Paul II was very sick, and he said if he's going to resign, that's absolutely respectable, and it's possible from the canonical law. But the timing, also in Germany, it's Carnival today, so no one is really paying attention and expecting big news from the Vatican. So it was a shock wave in Germany.
John ALECHENU, what's the reaction you've heard over in Nigeria?
Well, it came to most as a shock because we're a deeply religious country. We might have different denominations, but we have a large Catholic population here. For most of them, it first came as a shock because there are people who felt it was by virtue of his office, he should be a spiritual leader who is strong and can believe that if he's sick, he would get healing from God who appointed him. Because they see his election as, even though done by men, is one that was ordained by God. So the belief is that he should have held on and had faith enough, because that would strengthen other Catholics and other believers into remaining in the faith. By throwing in the towel, it brings a sort of dilemma for them who look up to him to provide spiritual guidance. It is really a shock. It's to some, it has not even gotten down to them yet. They do not quite comprehend, the magnitude of what has happened.
Let me ask Jean Duchesne about this then. So, Jean Duchesne, it is true that the Pope is a conduit, right, between God and us here on earth. So
not the only one.
Not the only one, but
fortunately.
But what do you think of that reaction out of Nigeria? That because he's the Pope, his faith should keep him strong.
These are feelings that everybody else shares. I mean, they think that the people, the Catholics in Nigeria, are no different from the others. In respect, I mean, it's the same thing. We always feel a little lost when the vicar is removed. When we lose somebody we were used to, somebody we trusted, and somebody we had learned to really appreciate and love and follow, so that we feel a little like the lost sheep. Where's the shepherd?
All right. So some of the reactions we've seen, you've seen them in our news bulletins, solemn, some tears for among the faithful, a couple a little bit facetious on Facebook. Sheridan saying, glad to see he gave God 2 weeks' notice, an allusion to the fact that it is so unprecedented for the Pope to be stepping down. And on Twitter, responding to a tweet by Laura Sie, who teaches about African politics, it's been 598 years since a Pope resigned. Well, the reaction of Todd Moss, Mugabe is going for the record, is what he answers. So you see, it's some of the jokes there. But now, of course, comes the task of picking a successor. 2 weeks might not be enough. D saying, how about not having any more popes? It's based on who killed the competition in the tower, poison rings, etc. It's a joke, but at the same time, there is this sort of idea that now what's going to happen is mid-March, right? They're going to gather.
Well, we don't know yet for sure.
It's behind closed doors, and it's all very mysterious and murky, and how a pope gets picked. Just how mysterious is it?
No, it is not. It is not mysterious. It is simply something that is confidential. In the root of the word confidence, that the fact that you trust somebody. So the question is, who are the cardinals going to trust? Who do they think will be able to represent the church and guide the church and help everybody really in the third millennium? Because I think that we are really turning a page. See, in a way, Benedict was John Paul's successor. He also was his man. And this was, in a way, the end of the 20th century. And now we are really entering a new era. And the question is, who will be trusted by most of the cardinals? So it is not a democratic election.
It is. It is a very democratic election. And yes, there's a lot of...
Not everybody votes.
Well, they even... Benedict reinstated the two-thirds majority to avoid that before John Paul II tried to change the rules, and at a certain point, if it takes too long, absolute majority would be enough. And Benedict XVI said, no, we go back to the two-thirds majority. So they have to have so many rounds of voting until they have a two-thirds majority. This is a very, very democratic process. The only problem is it's very secret, and they have no contact to the outside world, and all the media are waiting for the famous smoke. This is something...
So break it down for us. Generally, classically, how does it work? There's different
groups. Put them
groups.
all together into the Sistine Chapel, and then they have to vote. And unless they have a two-thirds majority, they vote again, and they vote again, and
yes, twice in the morning, twice in the afternoon, no more.
Yes, I mean they have a certain rhythm. They have also breaks, and it's laid down. Everything is clear, but it can take a while.
It could take a while, like it did for John Paul
See,
I.
it is no ordinary election, not simply because there are only 100 or so cardinals who can vote, but because there are no candidates. I mean, there used to be candidates until the early modern times, but there are no more candidates because honestly, no reasonable, balanced guy can really run for such a job.
All right, let's go now to Rome and France 24 correspondent Seema Gupta. Seema, what's your early prediction? Is this going to be a quick affair, or do you need to take your vitamins to get ready for a lot of doorstepping?
Well, frankly, Francois, the last time round there was such a conclave and such an election. The journalists, including myself, we were covering that story and we were expecting a long wait out, but it only lasted a couple of days and then we saw that white smoke after those ballots were burnt. And this time round, what has come as a big surprise, as I'm sure you've been mentioning and everyone's been mentioning around the world, and here in Italy, of course, is the shock at this news that Pope Benedict made today, this decision that he announced that he would be resigning. Here in Italy, the political reaction, Mario Monti, the outgoing prime minister, said he was shocked when he heard it. The president, Giorgio Napolitano, saying that it took great courage to take such a step. Now, I spoke to some of the people that were in St. Peter's Square soon after the announcement came out. Many said that they were in shock by it. One said to me that he thought it was a joke when he heard about it. Someone called him and told him, and he just happened to be at the Vatican. But they all said that they were rather surprised. Some of the Italians I spoke to said that they were surprised that the Pope took such a step because they thought that if you became Pope, you were Pope till the end, till death, as it was in the case of Pope John Paul II, who even though he was so fragile, he stayed on at Pope till the end. Whereas this Pope, on the other hand, has made the decision to step down, and citing his age, he will be 86 in April. And so taking that into account, and we've seen how his health situation has deteriorated. If you look at the last couple of years, he's brought the Christmas Mass 2 hours earlier instead of midnight. He's also used the moving platform to move up and down St. Peter's Basilica and has used a cane in order to move around. So clearly his health condition clearly behind his reason to take such an unprecedented move today.
All right, let's stay with us, Seema, because we're going to look a little bit more deeply about at who's going to succeed him. Irish betting site Paddy Power, quick to draw up odds, and a francophone, hey, tops the list. Canadian Cardinal Marc Ouellet at 5-2. Now, this was earlier in the day, of course. And then we have 2 Africans in the running. We have Cardinal Peter Turkson. Oh, they got their flags mixed up. Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana at 7-2, and Cardinal Francis Arinze, who is not Italian but indeed Nigerian. He is also at 7-2, ahead of Archbishop Scola, who is the first European in 4th place. Of course, let me ask you this, John ALECHENU. Cardinal Arinze, 80 years old. Do you genuinely think he's got a shot at being the next pope?
Well, most Nigerians would want that to happen. But then it is not a popularity contest. Nigerians still consider the office of pope, Nigerian Catholics still consider the office of pope as divinely inspired, and that whosoever is going to occupy that office must be one that has the interest of the church at heart. Could be Nigerian, could be Egyptian, could come from any part of the world. It's not a democratic system in the sense that we understand it, like people going to campaign or vote for my candidate, vote for that candidate, don't vote for that candidate. They believe if it's God that chooses the Nigerian, yes, they would support him. If God chooses someone else, they will still give the person the support. The prayer is that the person will have the strength of character to take the Catholic Church to the next level. But then the issue of age is also, since the Pontiff now is resigning on account of his age, why, put someone else who might fall for the same trap, to replace him? Why not get a younger person, so to speak? It might not be a 40 or 50-year-old, but someone in his 60s, if you ask me. So it is also an issue that has brought forth a lot of debate. Some have even likened it to the old Soviet Union that kept recycling men who are advanced in age, who couldn't last in office. And that would be a challenge, if you like.
So definitely the search for somebody younger, perhaps, and thus Cardinal Turkson of Ghana. Could he be really a contender to be the next pope?
It's possible. I mean, it was already when Benedict XVI was elected, there was a lot of people asking for an African pope, because now more than half of the Catholics are in the developing world. So it would represent the Church much better if the Pope comes now from Latin America or Africa. On the other hand, I'm not sure if all these people who are asking to have an African Pope now, because it should reflect the image of the Church, are then happier than before, because also African Catholics might be much more conservative, and that they are as more conservative than their European brothers.
Than the European counterparts. We'll pick up on that point after the break, but quickly, before we go to the break, Seema GUPTA, have we seen perhaps the last European Pope? What's the feeling right now outside the Vatican?
I think definitely there is this feeling that could it possibly come from a different part of the world. But we have to look at the makeup of the cardinal electors. Now, those are the cardinals that are under the age of 80 that will actually be casting those ballots. Majority of them are from Europe, and from within Europe, the majority of them are from Italy. So will they really pick one of their own? As you mentioned, those bookmakers have put their bets on those 3 candidates. But it's interesting to note that Vaticanologists generally say the person who goes into a conclave, a pope, comes out generally a cardinal. So the idea is that whoever goes in and is seen as the most likely isn't likely to come out as pope, although that very saying was broken in the last election, because back then Joseph Ratzinger went in as the most likely candidate to be pope, and when he exited, he was indeed Pope Benedict XVI. So we'll have to see what happens this time round when the conclave actually happens, and we'll be able to see that smoke coming out of that chimney over St. Peter's Basilica.
All right, so the difficult to point to precedent. Seema GUPTA, thanks for joining us from Rome. Stay with us. The France 24 debate continues after a short break.